Muhammad, I'd like to ask you about the fight. Did you have any doubt about winning at any time?
Well, round 10, I was surprised Joe had so much stamina. As surprised as in shape he was. And if I didn't have the condition, I know I would have lost. There was too much pressure.
I think he deserved a lot of congratulations.
He is the greatest fighter of all times next to me.
Except for you.
Except for me.
What a pleasure getting James Smitty Smith back. And I know that you had the last interview with Joe Frazier, James, before he sadly passed away. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, buddy. Good to talk to you.
Look, I said that I want to mark these moments because I just think it's really important in the sport of boxing, especially where the heavyweight division sits at the moment, James, that when these anniversaries come up, that all the youngies actually get on YouTube, which is really fortunate that they can, and actually sit there and have a look at these last 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 rounds.
Yeah, this fight, I'll read something to you that I wrote for my television show, and I actually did it on another show the other day. This final chapter of this historical trilogy really represented and illustrated who and what these two men and fighters are and were inside and outside of the squared circle. They were, in fact, as men and fighters, the total antithesis of each other. Ali and Frazier painted their lives and careers on completely opposite canvases. But in the end, these two great warriors needed each other, were, in fact, meant for each other to bring out the best in one another. Two diametrically opposed men and fighters made for and created the ultimate fistic drama. That's what I think of these two.
Beautiful, James. Beautiful words. And look, you know, they call it the sweet science. There is nothing sweet about that. I was saying earlier, how many humans on the planet could stand there and take one of these two? Punch from either of those.
That's a great observation. You know, I still, with sore neck, sore elbows, sore knees, I still climb inside the ring about 3 or 4 days a week. I spar about 2, to keep up at least a look for my television show. And anybody, it's one thing for fans to get on there and call somebody a bum. I don't like it in any sport if they call somebody a bum and they've never played the game. But you don't play boxing. So, I've told this even to professional golfers and tennis, but world-class guys, that, you want us to be quiet during your sport. Try getting hit in the damn face. There's something, boxers are the most common and uncommon of all athletes.
Yes.
They're uncommon because there's nothing common, Marty, about getting hit in the body and face. It's something special, and these two brought out the best and also health-wise made for the worst for each other.
Look, that is it. And I say the same. I quote the same thing, James. There are some people in the world that, they don't mind, or that they can get used to it, or they somehow absorb it. But getting punched in the face is not a pleasant experience, let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I only had, 10 pro fights, 4 on record, and I lost 3 of those fights. I never got knocked down or stopped, but I got beat up in the gym. I had 6 cracked ribs during my career. I've had some great fighters. Mike Tyson actually knocked my bridge out of my mouth. Jeff Bennick recently bloodied my nose. And even the young lady that I'm working with now, Amber Dixon, who does the sports on Channel 3, who I'm mentoring, she popped me in the nose and somewhere else a little bit below the border the other day, and it still hurts. So, yeah, it's something. And when you do it at a level like Ali and Frazier, this is, in fact, the 40th anniversary of their third fight.
Yeah.
I was with Ali all the way up till 9 days before their first epic fight, March 8, 1971, Madison Square Garden, a fight, Marty, that I consider the greatest fight of all time. Not only that, I think it's without question the most important sporting event of all time.
Wow. I wanted you to compare these. That was my next question. James Smitty Smith is with us. It's the 40th anniversary, as James says, of the Thrilla in Manila. And I rated them. I thought that it was Madison, in no particular order, but my 3 favourites, Madison Square Garden, Rumble in the Jungle, for the fact that Ali had to come back and beat the guy that was the beast, the scariest man since Sonny Liston, and this one in Manila. Do you think that those 3 Ali Frazier fights would they give that the edge out of the Rumble?
Yeah, oh yeah. Listen, this third fight, as a guy who was with Ali and knows the fight game, it lacked in terms of artistry. They weren't at their best. But again, they were able to bring out the best they had because of who they were. And, I interviewed Joe. I was the final TV interview Joe ever did. And he took to the grave this animosity and bitterness. And I don't blame him. I mean, for what Ali and I would find out later on in life it did to him. I can't really. Ali took it too far, but I mean, it wasn't as great a fight. The first one, they were never the same. The fact that that's part of the reason Ali had to implement the strategy of the rope-a-dope against George Foreman, because Frazier beat the hell out of him so bad in that first fight, and other fights where Ali fought Frazier, fought Shavers and Norton 3 times, and Chavallo, and all these other guys that, could hit. And he had to implement that kind of style because he simply couldn't move the way he did, and you said it. There are many men, most men, almost everybody listening, if they had been in the ring for even one of those 41 rounds, they would have been beaten, certainly into the hospital, and some senseless, and some would even be dead from those shots.
0800 825 is our number, people. You want to ask James anything at all about boxing, you can ask him about Floyd, you can ask him anything about boxing while he's on the line. Take advantage of it. 10:23 is the time. So what did Mike Tyson do to you?
Well, when I did my in-ring with him, he was demonstrating the shot that he threw in that first Bruno fight, right hook to the side and then straight up. And I had a bridge that was loose. And because Mike's hands are so damn heavy, he hit me with something, and the bridge got looser and fell out the next day. So he was not trying to in any way hurt little Smitty. But Mike Tyson has – I'm glad you see the humor in this. Marty, even my ex-wife to this day sees the humor, especially her in it. But, my bridge kind of fell out the next day. But when you get in with these guys, just like when I do against a novice, you can make somebody like realize right away, who you are and what you represent. And, Mike had heavy hands, to say the least.
James, would fighters these days be able to do the 15 rounds, and what does it take to be able to train and get yourself in shape to be able to go past 12?
Did you ever see $1 Million Baby?
Yes, I did. Love that movie.
Everything in boxing is backwards, and it's still going that way. The guys that were able to do the 15 rounds, and, this is a pet peeve for me, a bunch of them, these also were guys that, not counting heavyweights, they can weigh in any time, but all other fighters, they weighed in the day of the fight, which meant if you were the welterweight champion of the world, you were the best 147-pound guy in the world because you weighed in at 147 pounds. Now, with this rehydration, which had good intention, I think, they've totally made a mockery of it. Now guys, especially in MMA, but even in boxing, they put on 15, 20 pounds overnight, so they're worried about being bigger and focusing on being bigger rather than better. And that's why our sport, boxing, and I sound like an old man, but I'm just being honest, the guys aren't as good. There's a couple guys today that are that would be on an all-time list, but they would be, other than like Hopkins, they would be way down on it. They're not as good. They're not as skilled because it's not going to go back with all the safety things we're doing now in sport. It's not going to go back. And same with football. I'm getting ready to go do an interview with Will Smith, who has a movie coming out called Concussion, where he plays a doctor that discovered chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which all these football players apparently are having, and the same with fighters. So we're probably not going to go back to it. But, that's the guys today, to answer your question, 95% of them could not be 15-round fighters.
Is it also, James, before we go, and thank you so much for your time today, is it one of those things that we just will always look back on it as the golden era of heavyweight boxing? And I'm not just saying that this sort of Muhammad Ali thing, I'm saying perhaps through from, I don't know, the 1950s through to the mid-70s to the late 70s, maybe Larry Holmes at the end of that. But from that point, Mike Tyson jumps in, but we're never going to see it again, are we?
Yeah. And I only would do this with you, but whenever I'm on with you, I just have to end it with a great sexual analogy. I mean, think of your great sex, the greatest sex you had, and everything else pales in comparison. Does that touch you in a way?
Well,
that you understand?
I wish it didn't, James, but yes. Hayden's left. Hayden's getting a cold towel. He's got to pat down.
There's great sexual stuff and touching him and
I tell you what, once you go on Smitty, you never go back.
Yep, that's a saying. They all seem to have it, and they never seem to forget it, baby. Never seem to